In Gawler in 1850, Mr. Ellis Burton opened the St George's Day School with 130 students from in and around Gawler. And it had, in its day, it had a good reputation with good quality education. But changes to the funding of education within the State Education Act of 1877 saw this school closed down after 27 years. The Church of England Gawler Grammar School was then established in the early 1900s and was located in Walker Place, just off Murray Street. Following these scholastic inroads, Anglican education then went into recess until a Christmas sermon in 1982, when Reverend John Kinsman suggested the concept of a new parish school that could be opened in Gawler. A group of the parish elders took on the vision and held a public meeting at Gawler High School Library on the 6th of June 1983. Support, although tentative, was sufficient to get the ball rolling, and in July a notice was submitted to the Commonwealth Schools Commission of the intent to open a new school in Gawler. Trinity College opened the 6th of February 1984 with 27 students. The teachers were Tina and Peter Hatchett, and they were assisted by part-time staff including a secretary, librarian, teacher's aide and a music teacher. During this year, the college secured funds through guarantees from parents and various contributions to acquire 50 acres of land at Evanston. And finally, the College Council chose Michael Hewitson to commence in 1985. With Michael and Ros involved with the groundswell after term 1 of 1984, a very controversial period, I understand. I was at the newspaper at the time, the Bunyip, so I remember those times well. I was a photographer. There was a lot to be done at Evanston site. A classroom block had to be built, as well as house for the headmaster. Cost-effective modular pine log panels were used, and racing against the clock for a start at the beginning of 1985, it was again all hands on deck. During the construction, Michael Hewitson was busy seeking new enrolments, seeking registrations of the new school, same name but different location, seeking government funding, and of course seeking staff. By some miracle, the classroom block was ready for the start of 1985, the year with the staff utilising second-hand furniture and had to be sanded down first and second-hand books for the classrooms. Even the chair of the College Council had to spend some nights sleeping in the new building to guard against new appliances that were delivered before the building was lockable. And the headmaster moved into his log cabin residence with his wife Ros and 4 young children even before the power and water were connected. So the classroom block got the high priority. Demand for the places at the college continued to grow at a great rate. The difference between Father Kinsmore's vision and of a small parish and Mr. Hewitt's vision of a larger, more financially secure college began to emerge. And the rest, they say, is history. My memory of our children going to the school were that parents were to be involved with their children's education. Working bees, Trinity Sundays and presentations, etc. were part of the course, so involvement was imperative. Michael said in his bio that one of his career highlights was the appointment as the foundation principal and CEO of Trinity College Gawler from 1984 until 2002. In 1998, he was recognised as a Fellow of the Australian College of Education, and in January 2013 was made a member of the Order of Australia for significant services to education, to the Anglican Church in Australia and to the community of Unley. So please welcome Trinity College Foundation Principal and now Mayor of Unley, Michael Hewitson, to the pulpit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul, and congratulations to the History Group. One of the things that we're doing in Unley is tripling the size of our museum. It contains the soul of our community, a community that doesn't know its past, doesn't value its past, can throw away things and not step forward to the future with such great confidence. I congratulate the Bunyip paper because it's still surviving in an era where newspapers are going, and that paper provides a sense of community for the region. So it's a privilege to come here as one of your guests to talk about the history of Trinity College, which is of interest. The area where Trinity was set was the worst performing area of education in the whole of Australia. Next. The location of that thing, you can see the 3 schools or the 4 schools are right in the middle of the worst performing area, and so that's what we were up against. And so what was the problem? Okay. One of the things that life is strange. Go next, please. I was graduated with an honours degree in microbiology, and I was wanting to be a teacher anyway. At half the salary as a microbiologist, I applied to go to the worst school in the state system rather than accept a job at St Peter's College for 2 years and then 2 years at a school in England as a widening horizon. A friend of my dad's, Jim Giles, some of you may know him, said to me, "You won't widen your horizon as much as going to the worst education department school in South Australia and seeing how the other half lived." Without that background, I wouldn't have had the tools to be the foundation principal at Trinity College. Next. History. I won't repeat this because it's been covered. Anglican schools were separate under the oversight of the rector of the parish. That's how they worked. And that's how the meeting of parents that formed in the Gawler meeting, I was asked to go out to talk to the Gawler meeting. And I was talking as the Secretary of the Anglican Schools Commission and the honorary head. I was Director of the Salisbury Education Centre, the honorary head of a school we set up at Verdun as a model state school and a Christian thing. And we had the constitution, everything. And so the parish school system, next. So we set up in Verdun in a state school property with the blessing of the education department, a model state school in the independent sector. You can see that we almost, and the Anglican Church was heavily involved too, because I talked to the Anglican Synod and about setting up schools. And so we did a survey of 1,000 children that were attending church over 2 Sundays, ranging from Port Adelaide, a straight line up to Tea Tree Gully, and then a control at Trinity and one at St Michael's Mitcham. And the leadership of the church were entirely happy with the state's education. Why? The children of the clergy got scholarships to Pulteney, Saints, etc., Woodlands, etc. And the wealthy could afford those schools. You know, one family in 1,000 family were happy with the state system in the survey. It was a real shock to Synod. And hence the push to get choice under choice and diversity. Because at the time, the Christian story, the nativity, you weren't allowed to have Christmas carols, nothing. It was all being pushed out. It wasn't part of society. It was an optional extra. And there were families who actually wanted the culture that they grew up as part of their children's upbringing and growing. Next. Whilst we got very close, and so when I talked at Gawler High School meeting, it was about the concept of public education and about public state Christian schools. Well, I could tell you, Trinity wouldn't happen if Father John and those parishioners hadn't got started, because they jumped the gun. They started it before we even got the no that couldn't happen. It looked very likely, as you can saw from the previous one. So I had absolutely zero credit, except I did go out to a meeting when the steering committee was setting it up at the rectory. And they were Father John was describing the school he wanted, and I said, "Look, you don't want me here." I said to the board, to the group there, "You don't want me here. The vision that you have for a school is not the vision of the 2 schools that were at Woodcroft and Padare, were the 2 schools we're planning as the foundation schools when we couldn't get state schools." And then the groups came round and said, "Don't go, we want you to stay." And so I stayed for the rest of the meeting, and then I had nothing much more to do with this, except the school opened, and one of their board, their treasurer, John Strange, joined the Anglican Schools Commission. And by the end of term 1, he was telling us that the numbers had dropped to 24. Parents were walking in at any times and interrupting the teachers, and students for the school was about to close, and but could the school join the Anglican school system? I voted against it. The majority was 4-3. The majority of 4 voted to take the Trinity College under its wing, and then the next thing, I got taken by John Strange around for a pastor dinner, and he says, I want you to come out to the school and have a look at it and give us a bit of advice. And that's how I got involved at the little touch when I came out. And needless to say, Peter and Tina were new out of college, provisional teachers. They'd never taught in a primary school. Never. Tina had done 1 term's contract. They were beginners. And they were thrown into this. And they were very courageous, very brave, but they didn't know they were teaching grade 4 and 5 maths to the grade 7 children. And so the helpful advice for parents, can you imagine running a school with qualified teachers with experience from the parish coming in and telling you what to do next in front of the kids? You know, that's how it was going. And as Paul said, he knew that I didn't think the school had a hope. I thought the reputation in the community had destroyed it. Anyway, there it was. And so I suggested the Constitution. So I gave them the Verdun Constitution. And I gave them advice on that. And then they adopted the Constitution. And then I was asked to go out to be the foundation principal to go there. Well, let me tell you, I wasn't very enthusiastic about that either. It looked like an absolute disaster. So, you know, it's a story of Job. You know, these biblical stories, it wasn't a whale, the translation's a big fish. It's a very true story. It felt like you're being eaten by a big fish and you start arguing with God, you know. And so you sort of said, right. I said to the committee, we're not even interested unless we have 80 primary children and 40 secondary children so that we can have an R1, a 2, 3, a 4, 5, 6, 7 and 2 year 8 so that we can set up a decent school that can hold its head up and provide a top education for the children of this area. Now that would seem like an absolute dream back then. Anyway, we proceeded and the board then appointed Ros first because I wasn't going to appoint my wife to the staff. That looked like things. So she got appointed as substantive head of Arda 4. And let me tell you, I'm pretty good down to year 5. I'm pretty hopeless when they... I like it. I'm pretty hopeless with the younger ones. And let's face it, Ros can spell. And she goes to Trinity Sunday now and she walks up and says, there's a spelling error in that teacher's class. that area there, you know, shame. Anyway, the poor staff at the school through those years would have Ros go around to all the classrooms to have a look. And if there was a spelling error in a classroom, all the kids' work was on display. Anyway, I was tripping up twice a week to come out to the school, meeting parents who might be interested in enrolling, doing things. Ros visited all the kindergartens, and we got to the number pretty quickly, to the 40 secondary, and then it kept going. And it passed 120, and we started with 189 on day 1. Next. Those teachers were all appointed by the end of term 3 the year before. And I told them, because the school had applied, you know these forms that were filled out that applied for the government? They'd put in every teacher that was in the parish, and they'd put in all the teachers who were on the list there, and there were 27 students. That gave them a staff-student ratio of 4 children to 1 teacher. They didn't need any government money at all. They stuffed up all the form filling. And so the school had 0 money. Does it say 0 money? Yeah. And despite the fact I tried to correct that and get the forms in with the correct numbers for the next year with the staffing ratios, and it qualified for funding, we had 0 funds. So I contacted all the teachers in term 4 and said, you may pull out. You're not going to get paid. If you come, how much money do you need to survive? And that was the way we opened the school. Not one of those teachers pulled out, and they had to bring their own blackboard paint to paint something to and bring their own chalk and furniture, the parents and stuff. And you've seen that, the way the school was built by the parents, and you saw all that. It's all true. So there it is. The ones with the highlight were still there when I left. We had a problem at Trinity. We didn't lose our staff. If you think about a business, you have a sort of a 25-year half-life expectancy of staff. And when a staff member did leave, somebody mentioned Sean Carlin. There's lots left. Within a year, they'd applied to come back. And so we started to appoint some old teachers, because they would have to leave. Okay, none of them were old. Next. Oh, the extraordinary thing was for this school, I mean, I did, as director of the Salisbury Education Centre in a prior life, I knew thousands of teachers who knew me. But the extraordinary thing is, Tony Shinkfield from Saints came up to a house at Gawler, and that's the house up there, and that's where the interviews took place, and I had a pile of applications like that. And about half of them were absolute rubbish. People think we're taking anybody and with no expertise or anything. But the other half of applications were simply stunning and outstanding. There were teachers and professionals in education from across the system that were looking for a vision to deliver something of quality to kids in lower socio-economic areas. And they saw the need, they saw the vision, and their heart was in it. That's the toilet block arriving. And Ros refused. The school council thought it'd be a good idea if 189 kids, all the staff and all the parents visiting the school used that toilet. Because there was no sewage in that on day one. Yeah, we did go out there early because the board were talking about starting the school halfway through term one. There was no way we were going to be starting that school except on day one, come what may. And as everybody knows, that up there was a ceremony for Trinity Sunday with 7,000 people. No one expected that to start 1 second late, did they? Okay, next. So why do people choose a school with dust and no dollars? Now, my wife criticised my first effort. She said, it's like a university lecture. Well, a little bit of it is, I've squashed all that out, taken it out, and there'll be more bits and pieces. Now I know a few people in here are in trouble. Okay, next. We didn't have because we had the extra kids, I got a tin shed, and we had the library, the sick room, the front office. My office was a cupboard with a door, and a voluntary staff, all in one room. So you couldn't say we had library, technology, shade, you saw the picture. Science labs, we had one, and that was a tick. Grounds, nothing. Port, nothing. Sports facilities, nothing. So that's what parents value, so why did they come? Next. Does the choice of school matter? I just thought it's worth seeing what the parents, why they'd bother. Well, 10% of their educational outcomes only is parental background. 35% is due to the school you choose. There's a whole lot of other factors, and you'd have to go into the literature. The book I wrote is full of all the literature things, but they're buried at the back to make it an easy read. But anyway, that's there. Next. That's 3 hours before school starts. That's what it was like. By the way, half an hour earlier, Jeff Gordon, Chair of Council, with a couple of others, tried to switch electricity on. Didn't work first time. And then 20 minutes before this photo was taken, a sweat, and they tried a second time, and electricity came on. So the school had electricity, and it had a septic tank type thing. It didn't actually have it had a tank, and it had to be pumped out every couple of days and then taken away in a truck. So so there we go. Next. Now this is what we could do. The parents wanted, in choosing a school, discipline, values, peer group, prestige, forget that. Tradition, we didn't have any. And religion, well, that wasn't that important for most, but it rated. So we could at least do literacy, the quality of the teachers, a secure, safe environment, numeracy, life skills, values and discipline. And we did from day one. The whole curriculum was planned. Each year level had an organised step. Later on, I was invited to be the independent member of the National Board of Education. Do you know the Trinity curriculum looks awfully like the progressions in that national thing? New South Wales, the whole of New South Wales actually adopted that as their core education. The other states have made it an optional extra for schools to take on or not. Mat, Sat, Cat, phonics, times table, 20% more maths, English, core curriculum, because there is there. Oh, half the curriculum was playing, half was solid core. So next, don't know what I've got. Oh, empowering staff. You know, discipline is for other people's kids, but you want a disciplined environment. And so I would say to the parent, because I've empowered the teachers to be wrong in giving a student a Friday detention. They could do that, no issues, no debate. After the kid had done the detention, and this happened right through my time, it started in year one, after the kid had done the detention, you could come and debate it with me. You know, nobody did. And what I said to the very angry parent, I said, look, you can take Johnny or Susie out of the school and send them to a school where the parents and where the teachers have no power. But if you come to a school where my kids are at, the teachers are empowered to be wrong. We weren't there. And so that's how the discipline, and it was a bit of a fight. The core curriculum is clear, honest reporting. That's a shock. If your kid was hopeless, we said so in the report. And they were measured against the Warner test. And I insisted that. And if it wasn't that, I signed all the reports. If it wasn't that, and I knew it was that fudge to sort of pass the problem on to the teacher next year later, that wasn't on. And some parents, very, very few, didn't like that. But very soon they came round and valued it. Most parents were so grateful. And I can tell this story about the National Board of Education. All this experience I took to this group. We did the Australian curriculum, we did the NAPLAN testing, we reviewed schools across the whole of Australia, and there were 6 from the states, myself as the independent, 1 from Catholic, 1 from independent, and we made the recommendations of what happened. I was on the curriculum committee and did the money. Oh God, that was a mistake. I attended a meeting there and I said there's $1,079.07 discrepancy. These are millions and millions of dollars on Bass's accounts between the income and the expenditure. They said, you're on the Audit and Risk Committee. 3 meetings later, you're chairing the Audit and Risk Committee. Yeah. It's not my first choice of committees ever, but it's necessary. Okay. So we empowered the next. Oh, one of the battles I had was with staff. They didn't believe that kids, that should tell about the Gawler High School story. When we opened, we were non-selective entry, open the door, just like a state school. And the fees were made sure everybody could come. Gawler High School, Don Fraser, thought this is a great chance to get rid of all those kids that were a problem at Gawler High. They couldn't read and write. They'd failed year 8. And so we had, yes, the lad you referred to was one of those, who's come up fine, and his kids went to Trinity, and he's on TV, as Brian tells me. Oh, it's Brian Fisher, at the front. I just happened to be in the... And he knows the student. I won't mention names, given the circumstance. You understand why. You have to ask Brian if you want to get the name. But most of you who are there know. And so what we did was we gave these kids big books which they were going to read to the reception class the next morning. So you had the very beginner readers, and so they learnt to read by being the teachers of the younger kids, taking things. And so they wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't putting kids down, because they were bringing the younger ones up. And so they had to be taught to read, they had to be taught their times table. And it wasn't easy. And if you want to find out how hard it was, I did write a book about that. Yes, it's in the book. My wife said, you can't put that stuff in the book. Yeah, well. Next. Oh, I've skipped a few in my thing. Here we go. End of 1985, we were in a very competitive environment in Gawler at the time. Faith Lutheran had opened up like Trinity Roseworthy has, flash, brand new government-paid buildings, and we had down the road a 20-minute train ride, Thomas More, St Bridget's, and starting up Emmanuel Lutheran in the thing. And in that first 2 years, it's extremely sad, there were 24 kids who came across from that original school. By the end of 2 years, 12 of them had left, including the parents, some of the parents who were the key people that enabled that school to actually start and go. Because the group of 24 children's parents had very different ideas about what school they wanted their kids to go to. We didn't lose anybody from the other 180, or actually do the maths properly, take 24 of 189 and you'll get the right number. Lost none of those. And didn't lose them from the next year either. But it was really sad. And you look at those videos and I see the people and the great people they were, and that they had a completely different vision. And the other person that would have been sad for was Father John. His vision was he was to have the oversight of the school. And he felt he was able to take children, without speaking to any staff or the headmaster, take children out and drive them back to Gawler for his office for counselling and advice and all that sort of stuff. It was the new constitution, it was a diocesan school, and it was a public school, and the head was in control of staff, students and curriculum. Totally different model. Okay, next. Mr. Hewitson, there's been an accident on the main North Road. Now, there are staff and teachers who take a bullet for their kids. And there are a hell of a lot of them at Trinity College, and I was one of them, but I wouldn't want the kids to know that. But I think some of them did, actually. You go down there, what happened was Dad, against Mum's advice, had dropped Jason off on the wrong side of the road, and he rode across, and he worked out that he could get across that side of the road onto the median strip before the car could. It's 110k a road at that then. Median strip, get onto the median strip, which is gravelly, and he did. Trouble is, the driver of the car didn't think he could, and so guess where the car went? And there I was cradling the kid. I won't go into a description. So we faced life and death from the word go, and we were privileged to be in a school where you could do that. And so the children came to the funeral, and that hymn was chosen. And I've been to weddings of old scholars, and they've used that hymn, which was for their funeral, and that's the power. Next. Burn the lot. You know why. How much did they spend? An outrageous $1,500 to furnish a school of 350 children. By the way, we did eventually get money from the government. The Prime Minister had the Archbishop go across, and the Archbishop, this is in October after the feast, so we'd gone a year and 20 months, no money. 20% of the school was parents' fees, that's all. And that challenged the Prime Minister. It was going to be publicly announced, etc., because everything qualified. There would be no response, and it was all going to go public. Well, Bob Hawke gave us the money. So that's how we got going the second year. Next. Now, governance is pretty important. Now, I'm going to point somebody out because he's here. See this guy there? You can thank me. Now, Trinity is a public school. Its finances are public, it's community owned. 9 out of the 13 are direct elections, 6 of those directly from parent staff and others, and 3 from parish things, all local. There were outsiders, and we needed outsiders. We got a lawyer, an accountant, and an educationalist to come to the board because they were hit on the ground in the starting of the school. I've got there the 1987 board. Horry Shilcock was the bursar at Pulteney. He came out of retirement, and Andrew Wilton. And I'm in trouble here. I've got the front office of the school. Rosemary Alexander did every single enrolment. We had in October of the year before it was finished, it's 2001. We had 4,864 students on our enrolment list because we ran it, didn't we, Rosemary? We ran through the lot and we just looked at the number at the end. You could do that with computers. We never knew how many we had on the enrolling list before because computers were being invented around the time of the turn of the century, and we did it all on bits of paper, and we weren't going to count all these bits of paper. Anyway, next. Oh no, go back, please. Governance, that's important. The great schools of England, and I knew this from my time as Director of Salisbury Education Centre and what made the great schools of the world, they had 2 things in common. Their principals did between 15 and 20 years service, and their chairs of council did 10 years. And so that was the model set up. Oh, I better wind back one too. I skipped something rather important. Let's go back. You're back. You're going to have to get to these. Oh, God, missed it. Oh, well, maybe it's coming. Look, we're almost up to, just run it forward till we catch up to the governance. So you can see we did that from the word go. That was built into how we were to run the school. So Jeff Gordon, he was the first one, 10 years. Jeff, second one, Rupert Thorne, 10 years. And this is way back, this is working right back from the sort of second year of the school in the new site. Now, that was how we set up. Now, that's what I'm looking at. I've told you the sadness of people whose vision I wasn't helping. Father John would have been bitterly disappointed with me. And half the founding steering committee would totally, I won't talk of names, but a number of families wanted a little caring, loving Christian school, just a little one. Others wanted a sort of area school, a bit like one of the towns on the river land, the flat there, area school, 12, with a few more, about 300 kids right across the school. And so all these different visions, and I wanted the best school in the world. I wanted nothing less. It's okay. Oh, I did offer my resignation because, if you go back, I wrote it down here, a bit of paper. We had 387 enrolments in 1986. We had 557 for the next year. The school had been set up. This board had a choice. Give me a 5-year contract, so I didn't want any of the backbiting stuff. Bite the bullet. 5-year contract, I've done 2, 5-year renewal. Or I've done what you asked me. You've got more enrolments than you thought you'd ever have. And the school's set up. And by the way, we were in the black by then. So I'd done what it was fair that I offered to go. And the family supported whichever way the board decided. And knowing the board at the time, because some of the people on there were totally opposed to what I was doing and recommending. It would have been fairly close, but I was at peace whichever way it went. Okay? None of that's in the history. Okay, next. So, we're up to, I promised the students in year 8, we had no prospectus, we had crap grounds, and I said, when you leave school, you'll get a prospectus of the school you went to. We didn't spend a penny on advertising. We spent nothing on publicity whatsoever. And we spent money printing in colour this prospectus. And that was the school. So we'll quickly run through. Thank you. Hang on. Better stop that one. I did mention in the worst performing area of the state. I want to tell you how bad it was. See the 1990? Not a single student got over a score of 90 in the school. My daughter and Juliet Neve both got their doctorates. My daughter, she's one of those students. She topped engineering, got the top award, scholarship for it. She's got the other university prize. Actually woke the son up. He thought if my daughter, if his sister can do it, he'd better put a bit of effort in his university education, which is handy. And then she was out. Part of the prize was, top job in the top engineering firm. Designed the Grand Prix in China, and did other works around the place, villages in Thailand, etc. But when she got pregnant, she was a poster girl. She was put up on the schools, girls do engineering, but you couldn't go part-time. There was absolutely nothing. She had to, so to occupy her, she did a B.Ed while she was, the first year. Naturally, she topped that, and it's the environmental thing, topped that, of course, and then the school got nothing, over 90. And then she went out. She decided that teaching's more fun than being an engineer, so she became a teacher. And then her brother, of course, got a doctorate. Well, and so she was going to get a doctorate. She had 3 little kids. She was head of science at Concordia College. At the same time, started what was going to be a 7-year part-time doctorate. 2 years later, she had a doctorate. School that got nothing over 90. And that's what we're in. The teachers, most of them believed you couldn't get kids from a lower socioeconomic area up to be the best in the world. So, that took a punt. You want to know? So you can look at the gradual progress. Now, one of the problems is that the schools in the area were the worst delivering schools, except for Hamley Bridge Primary School. A few years later, we used to use the water testing, and Hamley Bridge was the only school in the region that produced kids as good as we were doing in our own primary school. By the way, that was Kevin Whittigan, who became the foundation principal at Lakeview. Why? Because the department wanted him to stop what he was doing out there and to follow the department's way of teaching things. And so he came and delivered what we were doing in Trinity, same thing, core curriculum, steps, process, assessments, etc., and a lot of fun and teachers learning by doing. Okay, so you go through and you can see what we were doing. I later became on the board of, asked to be on the board of Ross Trevor College because they'd lost half their primary school kids over 12 months. And the first year I was on the board, they lost another half of their half. In other words, they only had a quarter of their kids in their primary school left. And so I did a review of the school. I won't talk about that, except in one thing which is reasonably public. What they were doing is what the teachers, loving, caring. By the way, I accepted that in the Catholic school because the foundation of the school liked the vision of education that I had, Edmund Rice. It was straight off what he was trying to do with kids is what I was doing trying to do at Trinity, the same vision. So I accepted to go on that board. I wasn't a bit busy half. Anyway, what was happening is the teachers were concentrating on the kids who were F, trying to bring them up to a G. And the kids who were G, bringing them up to, and the Ds up to a C. And they weren't concentrating and weren't delivering for the top end. And Ross Trevor is going absolutely fine. They are delivering for the top end now. I mean, look at the results that we're getting in 90s. We had a review of the school in 1997 who said the school was underperforming, the review did. And yet you can see that 10% is the number of kids across the schools in Australia that get above 90. And in that year of the review, there were 94%. So the school was ruffling feathers. And what they'd done is they chose the 10 least performing subjects and pretended they were the top performing subjects. They're just average, random picks, and said we're only state average. The board of the school rejected the review. But it did undermine confidence. Oh, the next year, the results were up there from, I just got, thanks to Kay and the office, except they sent me out stuff. And that were the results. In the top 1% of the state, there were 4.6% of the kids. This is in the worst performing area in Australia. And the reason, next one, next. We had to be, we were so poorly resourced, we didn't show them what we had, we showed them what we wanted. That's not the chapel, that's what we wanted, that was part of the vision. So the year 8's got a vision for the future, and keep going. Keep going. Yeah. Oh, there's the school, they keep going. I had hair, look at that. Next, there's the school leadership team. Next. Next. Keep going. Can you do the next one? Oh yes, hang on, go back. Back. You're gone. Now, one more, just one. You've got to roll it, you see, that's why I didn't want to do it. Our Father Mark, he was our chaplain. Colourful. He was you know him, did you, James?
Yes.
Is that a fair description? And he was a squadron leader or wing commander or something in the Air Force. He's probably got, anyhow. And he wanted to become a priest, just had a calling. And for some reason, he was an applicant to come to Trinity College. He had no teaching experience, but by hell, he was a first-class mathematician, and he had a love of kids. But his language was a little bit to be. It was military language. Anyway, he was good. Next. Hang on. Wasn't there a picture of the grounds? Go back, please. Can you go back one? All right. There is a picture in there of the grounds. Oh yeah, was that in the first slide?
Yes.
Yeah, stop me, please, if you know it. So can we whiz back to the school grounds, because that's worth a brief bridge for this, and then we're going to whiz back to where we were. Yeah. You're doing well, by the way. This is pretty hopeless. Okay, back one. There, back one more. That's the vision. What happened to the... Hang on, you skipped one, I think. Oh, earlier, was it? Go back. Yeah, go back. Back one. That's it. That's where we were up to. That's a true picture. That's me in a glider, leaning over, getting a picture of the school. And my wife gave me a safety, a crash course in gliding for my 40th birthday. Isn't that loving? Anyway, that was one of the products, this crash course in gliding. And you can see where the school was at. Now you can whiz back up to where we were, please. You're doing a wonderful job there. There we go. By 1990, you can see a lot of faces you know. I've recently attended the 60th reunion of the St Peter's College students. God, they're an old lot. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, and you were asked to put in your thing 3 things you're most proud of. Well, and they're asked a bit of a snippet of your life story, and then they asked for what 3 you're most proud of, and then they asked for some other information, which they do. And the 3 things that I put down was, firstly, the family, because we had 4 of those children who helped build a school. And without them, I don't know that other parents would have confidence, because they got all the new teachers, because we had appointed good teachers. And the parents, you know, you've got a grade 5, a new grade 5 teacher comes in. We want the one we know is good. Our children are always in the other one we're appointed, all the way through. And that was part of the reason of giving confidence. Okay? I put the second one was an absolute gratitude to the professionalism and commitment of the staff of the school that came and shared that vision. And that's them, along with a hell of a lot of other volunteers and a hell of a lot of other people. So we'll move on. The teacher at the top there, I had lots of apologies. By the way, Nick Hately apologised, Rupert Thorne's apologised. These people wrote to me saying they couldn't come. I thought nobody'd be here. Everybody's on holiday. Michael Slocum was there interstate. I think the others are run overseas. And Leonie apologised, but she wrote this, and she said, this is the bit in the middle of I can't come to it. Anyhow, that's just, I should be horrified if she knew it was up there to be seen, but nevertheless, and the fact that I've identified her, but that was the experience of the staff, unsolicited. Next. There's Kevin Whittington somewhere there. Oh, God, I should have spotted him. Look at the experience. Another log cabin. The Education Department did a review because Trinity with so many enrolments, they were wondering, why is Trinity working? What's wrong with their schools? And one of the things all their parents said, we want a school with log cabins. Because that must be, this is true. And so they're log cabins. Anyway, that's day one with those students there. Next, the Blakeview staff. There's Kevin Whittington sitting in the middle. There's Karen McMahon, or somebody else. Karen, what was her name? There we go. She was in Roz's staff and what was called now the North School, which was the only other school. Now, the reason we did Blakeview was the results of the students applying to come in our Year 8 entrance test showed they were 3 years behind our own students in grade 7. 3 years behind. How in the hell are you going to get decent Year 12 results with students 3 years behind? So, and the worst thing was, all of those students that got in, first come, had enrolled at reception. So they had been on our waiting list for 8 years and came in at Year 8, 3 years behind, and they were just as good as the kids that came to the school and went through the school. We were a year ahead of the national performance. We weren't just normal. We were as good as Canby Bridge Primary. And so they're the staff there. Oh, we had a meeting with the board. Were you on the board when we decided to do Blakeview Ray at the time? Oh, well, you know this story. I'm glad that there's people here that know some of the story. We decided to find, I reported this to the board. Yeah? So they said, well, why don't we have a meeting to see if anybody turns up and is really interested? Because a lot of the board didn't believe the waiting list was real, did they, Ray? No, they thought it was just people. Okay, so at 10 minutes past 7 for a 7:30 meeting, we decided to have it in the library, which would seat about 240, you know, it had that roof, the log cabin library. That room was full. And so we rushed round and tried to open up the big shed, which Tony Copeland had built, a chicken shed, because that's how we got our gym, an indoor thing, and a place for 1,200 kids to meet under a roof. And it had a concrete floor, and it was luxury. It had concrete paths around the outside edge. And so we rounded up and we shifted across there 10 minutes before the meeting was to start, and it filled 1,200. And there was an air of panic in the room because we said there are only 300, when I said there's only 300 spots, and there was about 600 kids there. I think the board that night realised it was real. Okay, next. Now, the honorarium people. unions hated them. What it did, we have Jan Richards is there in the front. She was a teacher at Seymour College. A highly excellent French teacher, humanities teacher, but she wanted to be an honorarium. We had another person from up at Linddock, had a master's degree in librarianship, an honorarium. But most of the people wanted to get their children an education. So you work 1 day as an honorarium, you cover the cost of one kid's education. 2 days, it was that matter. We did it for the government, you know, a luncheon out, so something to pay for the tea, travel by taxi to get to the school, add it up, and guess what? It equaled a kid's education. And so it's just an honorarium. And in 2 days, that kid, 2 kids. The minimum you could do was 2 days, the maximum you could do was 3, because it was voluntary. And if you broke that, if you hit 4 or 5, it really messed up. It became intertwined, mixed, it blurred the line between honorarium staff and paid staff. Look what we got. That was just the library support. The 5 honorariums cost the same price as a staff member the union approved of. We didn't save any money, but what we did is we gave a community in a lower socio-economic area the means to educate their children. And every child got all the love. They were skilled. They had really good librarian staff training them, and they were really top people. Next. And the North Campus, that's Mark Richards there. That was Jan's husband. Helen Titty and Chris Brown. Not everybody from the original school left. Half of them stayed, and they never left. They right through. They're probably Helen somebody else now. Helen Parham, there you go. It was Helen, she was the librarian in the hall up there that helped the school get started. Chris Brown had 2 children at the school, etc. And so Wayne Johnson was on the board. They were honorarium staff, and they did things and made things go further. Next. Better have a look. I didn't know. That's jumped, hasn't it? Why have I got that one up there? That's interesting. South Campus. Oh, yes. We had a waiting list of 2,000. And we had the board there, and there was a member of the board who resigned from the board when we decided to build another school of 1,000 10 feet away. Because the waiting, even though the Blakeview kids turned up, the waiting list wasn't real. Anyway, Rosemary was through all this, weren't you, Rosemary? You did the whole running lot. We offered 1,000 places on the waiting list. That wasn't, I rounded it up. Look, I'm sorry. My councillors at the City of Unley have told me, Michael, don't quote 3 decimal places in all your stuff. You've got to keep it simple and round things up. You won't communicate with people. So I'm sorry, I'm behaving like the mayor, not like the principal. Anyway, so we offered the places, and only one person didn't take the offer. And that's because they moved somewhere North Queensland, Rosemary. That's right. 1. And what happened to the waiting list? People heard that you could get into Trinity. Rosemary? Oh, I won't ask you. That's fair enough. I can see. Look, it's not fun turning people away from a school, is it? Rosemary had one family who came strolling in, so angry. The people down the road, I told them about Trinity. Yeah? I told them about Trinity, and because no computers, all this is on paper. Told them about Trinity, and they got in, and I haven't. Why haven't I? You're meant to be first enrolled, best dressed. Rosemary calmly gets out all the folders. You came in at 2:19, and they came in at 10:35. That's where the cut was. And the waiting list grew. So we took 1,000 off and added 2,000 more to it. Okay. South Campus, that's why that's there. I haven't got any pictures of that in its things, but nevertheless, South Campus. The other independent schools, Ray knows all these stories, wouldn't let us go. They said Trinity's the best school in the region. If we get the South Campus, they'll be even better, and we won't be able to compete. Therefore, we're against it. So the state Labor Party refused to allow us to start the South Campus. This is now. We're going to start a school next year. There's a paddock there, right? You can think about it. Nothing's there. Oh, by the way, we planted the trees in the tyres like we did at Blakeford. They were there. Oh, Brian's complained to me when he came in. He says, I should have planted more trees, as he was in North Campus. We planted lots and lots of trees. He said, I should have planted more trees on the farm. I planted more at Trinity College. Thank you, Brian. You weren't the only one. I probably did things. Anyway, so we had the trees planted, and we had the enrolments, and we had the curriculum, and we had the build. We had no fun. So fortunately, Martin Evans, who was the member for Elizabeth, and I and the Archbishop. Now, Martin Evans was looked over by the Labor Party, and he went in as independent Labor and then became a member of the party. But the Labor Party only had one seat. And so we went and saw the minister and said, I said to him, Minister, what you're doing is saying you can't fund a school to be the best. You're pulling the school down to the standard of the state. Martin Evans says, by the way, you lose government if you don't get the funding. And the Archbishop said a few choice words. And late October, we had the funds to build a school. Late October, and you'll get the numbers up there of how many were due to start. I haven't got a picture. Anyway, we were being opposed left, right and centre. Next. Oh, by the way, 2 teachers, Roy Malone and Bill Farmer now, they start their classrooms in the ag sheds, in the shearing sheds, with the chicken poop and then down below. In the big tin shed, Tony Cogan's chook shed, we had a class in each corner. We opened whatever, and we had a couple of classrooms, which I think electricity worked. The teachers went in there. And so we built the school up, and by the end of term 1, we actually moved in. So pretty committed group of parents. The Blakeview School was booming, and they wanted to... Oh, I know what it was. Charles Jones. He was a master's graduate from Cambridge University, was head of Craigmore High School. And he said, what we need is a technical high school. There's 35 acres of land next door to next door to Blakeview. Why don't you get it and we'll set up a joint technical college, senior secondary technical college, and you go out to 10. We put in a bid to buy the Salisbury Education Centre, buy the whole Teachers College at Salisbury, because we had that many, we could have filled it from 2,000 on a waiting list in Salisbury. So it was no problem having students. If we had that building, we could have done another school of 2,000. The University of Adelaide, the Chancellor, is actually a friend of my father's. Our bid never got presented to the University Board. Anyhow, they were dithering and going slow. And when this came through the board, I mean, the head is responsible for what happens the next 5 years. The board is responsible for what happens for the grandchildren, the next generation. And the teachers have got to worry about getting them bloody well there now for today and handing them over in good condition at the end of the year. Yep. So that's how this thing's structured. All right. So, Craigmore High School, by the way, the school council backed it. This is the Craigmore High School council backed the vision. So the board, our Trinity board decided quickly that the land was going to disappear and be carved up. So we bought the land and in good faith that the principal and school council were sufficient. No. There were 4 union teachers who decided that our kids could get bashed up and it was, you know, they actually put in the, it's all in the paper and stuff in the day. It's in the book too. By the way, I had 84 people vet the book I wrote because I knew I'd be in prison if any error was made. And my wife didn't want me in prison. I'm getting there. Okay. Our time. Yeah, skip that. We had opposite. Oh, by the way, the money, we were then operating on 4,500 and Craigmore High School was operating on 1,000 more per kid. And there we are pictured as the rich car and the thin car. Next. Developing students. It was all planned. Yeah, year 8, reading to the whole school, the Bible, public speaking, year 9, the public speaking prize, outward bound, Dr. Slocum from the head of South Campus, he came from Timber Top, and the kids had to do everything like there. The leadership training, the board was to teach people how to relate. Rhonda was the darts teacher, and leadership training. There's the next after Rush. Starplex was a game changer. You turn away thousands of people and you smell in the community. Starplex brought the community in as part of Trinity College. We had 8,000 members within the first year. It covered its costs with 5% in that first year. Other schools were able to use it the same price as our school, but our teachers, our heads of school, which each principal could book it, and we booked first. I told them, you're going to book second, but you have what you want. And schools from Lindop right through were using it, and the community used it, and we become. I owe Gawler High School, as Trinity did, we had our athletics there. Don Fraser supported us. I told you he sent away his kids who couldn't read and write. He sent his own son to the school the second year. And I was able to attend all the state primary schools meetings with the things. I valued them. I owed them. They shared collegiality. They shared education with me as head of Trinity in those early years. Next. Gawler River. My wife said, I won't tell you what she said. Something about over somebody's dead body, the Gawler River. You know, was, everybody's getting twitchy about the size of things. Anyway, we did have that thing, and we did open up Gawler River, and there is day one, typical thing. Looks a bit like Rosewood, doesn't it? But what was unexpected is that if you came to Trinity and you paid your money, where did you think the kids who we couldn't get into Trinity went? And so we opened Gawler River, which is a long way away from Emmanuel, and we nearly closed the school in the first year. It was totally unexpected. So we then stopped kids coming to Gawler River from Emmanuel, and so some of the parents took their kids out of Emmanuel and put them in Gawler East Primary for a year and then to get into Gawler River. But we worked with the Lutheran system to enable, because they wanted the school to survive and we wanted the school to survive. We wanted good education for everybody in this region. Next. What's that up there, Paul? Oh, that's the staff of Gawler River. Yeah, that's what actually made the school. And Rick Jarman's still there. Still have it. Next. Enrolments. You can see how the enrolments went. Plus 100, this is in the blue one, 159 Montessori. Next. There's all the numbers from every year of the middle year census. Next. There's James Howard, who's here, up in the top corner, coming to the school the next year, captain of the school. I haven't talked about student leadership. We couldn't afford enough teachers, so the students had to run the school. They did the yard duty the first half. The houses were 60 big, and they were too big for a staff member to run. That was on purpose. They had to teach the kids how to run their house. If they're going to run the country when I'm older, I wanted them to be able to at least run a school. And the captain of the school might give them the cars, they'd take visitors. I had 3 groups a week come through, and they wanted to go and see Gawler River or wanted to go and see Blakeview, give them the keys to the car, and they'd take their parents down there and did the tours. They were literally vital, and they learnt that they also saved a mozza of money in the process in terms of the cost of running a school. They were part of the pastoral care built in. All the other bits are there. Got to finish. Next. Open Learning Centre. That won a national award. The most grateful group of parents I had at Trinity College were the kids who went to the Open Learning Centre. It opened at 9 and went through to 5. They were treated as adults. They were kids who didn't fit into the normal academic type school. Some of them were very bright. They were doing first year university. Some were doing TAFE courses. Some were doing paint and decorating. Aeronautical engineering is pictured there. So that went up, I think, 89 next year. Next. I wanted to finish a College of Excellence open to all and discipline caring school. There's the 2000 prospectus. We'll scroll through it. I won't talk much. Scroll. Our small is beautiful. If people think this, I never thought a school of 3,500 was very big, because it's made up of little modules. There was a school of 300 with a head of art of 4, with 12 teachers, with some visiting teachers from the senior school, and so we had a lot of them, and it just sort of added up. Next. Next. Leadership, or the bit out there was part of prospectus. Next. 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 Oh, there's where they were. Next. Oh, fees. Don't worry. Next. Oh, that's the school, again from the glider, which we couldn't afford a photographer. Hell, we went up, took the picture, and we put this. Pat, you were involved with this. Maybe you actually put this together, I think. Yeah, we didn't afford somebody like outsider or graphic people. That was Pat. Yeah. Thank you, Pat. You did a great job. Next. And I wanted to finish off with the enjoyment of learning. That's the key to a good school. The academics, how they finish up in life, their values, and the sheer joy of living. And finally, Roseworthy. Probably good, the next one. Now, Ros and I, we needed a fourth school. It was always part of our plan. We almost opened up a school at Kapunda. We had 300 to go to a school at Kapunda, but the state schools up there were totally opposed. They weren't cooperative like they were around Gawler. Two's company, three's a crowd, and we didn't want to go into and open up a school in an environment like that, them and us. And the community up north needed their campus and feeder through. But Ros and I were kind of persuaded by Ken Heath to allow our name to be used. We donated a scholarship, and we do one last couple of years, for 50% for a kid who couldn't afford the school. It's the working poor. Can you bring up a family, send your kids to Trinity at $50,000 income for your family for a year? And that's what's happening right now. And I was pleased because I offered the bursary, and we received this from Nick, and I've got his permission to print this. So, James, don't go running off and telling him. You can check up. I'm innocent. And the school offers graduated fees, see, 55, 60, 65, 70, up to 70,000. That's automatic bursaries and stuff that they provide. And I am pleased, and Rick finished with remain open for all and committed to excellence. And those fees and the scholarships help them, and we've now widened it so the scholarships that we're offering go to any campus, because Rosemary's well up and away. But the need to make sure it is open, because the school's got a budget and limits the numbers that can come in off that, and what we've done is just be able to add to it. The joy of learning. Thank you. I'd be very happy to answer questions. I'm rather relieved that this is over. And I'm in trouble when I get home.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was the nuts and bolts of Trinity College, which is part of Gawler's history.